All right, let's get right into it. For your thesis on family businesses, you're going to need a really solid way to analyze them. So that's exactly what we're going to build today, a powerful framework to help you figure out what truly makes these incredibly unique organizations last or fall apart.
So this is the central question, right? It's the paradox that should be at the very heart of your thesis. On the one hand, you have a company like the Italian winemaker Marchesi Antinori, which has been thriving for over 600 years. And on the other, you see these massive family empires like the Murdochs or the Redstones just implode in a storm of headline-grabbing drama. So what's going on? How can they be both so fragile and so unbelievably resilient?
Well, here's the thing. The answer, the key insight from all the research, isn't where you'd probably think to look. It's not about better marketing or smarter supply chains. The real difference maker is how the family understands and uses the incredible power of ownership. That simple idea is the lens we're going to use to understand everything else.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to use a framework called the 5 rights of family ownership. We'll start by digging into that ownership paradox. Then we'll walk through the first 3 rights: how you design your model, how you decide on governance, and how you define your values. And we'll wrap up by looking at how you secure the legacy for the future.
Okay, Section 1, the ownership paradox. Before we even get into the nuts and bolts of the framework, we have to appreciate the sheer scale of what we're talking about here. This is not some quaint niche corner of the economy. Family businesses are, quite literally, a massive force that shapes everything.
Just let this number sink in for a second. An estimated 85% of all companies in the world are family businesses. In the United States, that translates to 5.5 million businesses employing 62% of the workforce. So the topic of your thesis isn't just interesting, it's absolutely fundamental to understanding how the global economy actually functions. Okay, so that brings us to the very first of the 5 rights, deciding the ownership model. Now, I know this sounds like some boring legal paperwork, but it's not. Deciding who gets to be an owner and how control is shared, that is one of the most critical strategic choices a family will ever make. You're basically going to run into one of 4 flavors. You've got the sole owner, like the House of Camus. One person calls all the shots. Very decisive, but also very risky. Then there's the partnership model, where only family members who work in the business can be owners. After that are the 2 most common: distributed, where pretty much any family member can own a piece, and concentrated, like Vitamix, where many can own shares, but only a small group has the real power. For your analysis, your job is to spot the model, then immediately look for its natural weak spot.
And check this out. This is what it looks like out in the wild. See that biggest slice of the pie, 36%? That's the distributed model. And you have to pay really close attention to this for your research, because its core challenge, getting a bunch of relatives with different goals to agree on anything in dealing with free riders, is probably the #1 source of conflict that can tear a business apart.
So, you've picked an ownership model. Great. Now, how do you actually channel all that power effectively? That gets us to right number 2, governance. The idea here is to find that perfect balance, right? You want to avoid the owner who's a total micromanager, but you also have to avoid the one who's completely checked out, leaving a huge power vacuum. A really powerful tool for this is the 4-room model. Just think of it like this. You have different rooms for different kinds of conversations. The owner's room is for the big, high-level vision. The boardroom is for strategy. The management room is for running the day-to-day. And then, so crucial, you have the family room for keeping the personal relationships healthy. When it works, everybody knows which hat they're wearing and in which room. And this quote shows you exactly what happens when those rooms get blurred. In one case study, a CEO, we'll just call him Steve, started making all these rogue cowboy moves without talking to his sister and cousin who were equal owners. You can just imagine the resentment. It nearly destroyed the company. The thing that saved them? They built the 4 rooms. They implemented the structure, created an owner's council, and it pulled them back from the brink. It's a perfect example of how structure can restore trust. Now we get to right number 3, defining values. And honestly, this might be the single biggest superpower a family business has. Think about it. A public company serves one master, the quarterly earnings report. But a family business? It gets to define success on its own terms. It can decide that legacy or community or employee well-being are just as important as profit.
The tool you use for this is called an owner strategy. You can think of it like a constitution for the family business. It's where they write down what they're trying to achieve and what lines they won't cross to get there. But the real magic isn't the document itself. It's the difficult conversation it forces the family to have to answer the question, what are we really trying to do here, together?
And that conversation almost always boils down to a major trade-off between three competing goals: growth, liquidity, and control. You just can't maximize all three at once. The first tension, as you see here, is between growth and liquidity. It's pretty simple. Are we plowing every dollar back into the business to make it bigger, or are we taking cash out so the owners can fund their lifestyles?
The next side of that triangle is the tension between liquidity and control. Let's say the family decides they want big cash payouts every year. Well, if the business also needs capital to grow, it might have to go find outside investors. And guess what investors want? A say in how things are run. So as liquidity goes up, family control can go down.
Which brings us to the final trade-off: control versus growth. If a family is absolutely determined to keep 100% control, no outside partners, no investors, nobody else at the table, they might have to accept slower growth. Because that kind of explosive expansion usually costs money you have to get from other people. A good owner strategy doesn't magically solve these trade-offs. It just forces the family to choose their path with their eyes wide open.
Okay, we're heading into the final section, which pulls together the last two rights: inform and transfer. This is all about the big one: securing the legacy. Because you can have the best model, governance, and values in the world, but if you can't pass the torch successfully to the next generation, it was all for nothing.
So, the fourth right is the right to inform. Now, this isn't about spilling every company's secret. It's about communicating strategically to build three crucial types of capital. You need financial capital, which comes from committed owners who are in it for the long haul. You need human capital, which means engaged family and employees. And you need social capital, a good reputation. When owners hoard information, they're starving the business of all three.
And that brings us to the fifth and final right: the right to transfer. The biggest mistake families make here is treating succession like an event, like flipping a switch. It's not. It's a long, multi-stage process. You have to develop the next generation skills, you have to carefully plan the leadership handoff, and you have to thoughtfully transfer the assets. If you want a cautionary tale for your research, look at the Pritzker family, who founded Hyatt. A poorly planned transfer led to a family war that shattered their empire.
So here's the main takeaway. These 5 rights: design, governance, values, inform, and transfer. They aren't a checklist. They're an integrated system. You can think of it like an engine. A weakness in one area, like messy governance, will cause the whole thing to break down, no matter how great your ownership design is. A failure to communicate can totally derail the transfer plan. You have to analyze them all together.
So as you move forward with your thesis, I want you to use this framework as your main diagnostic tool. For the business you're analyzing, ask yourself this question: where's the weak link? Which of these 5 rights is its greatest vulnerability? Is it the design, the governance, the values? Finding the answer to that question, that's going to be the key to your entire analysis.